Welcome, all my fellow Washington brethren and sister. And your man and resident Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Washington Football Report. So we are live and just a smidge over a week left and away from the 2021 NFL Draft. I'm going to be honest with you. I am looking forward to this draft more than any other draft in the last 4-5 years or so. Not because of what happened last year, going 7-9 and winning the division or any of that, but just the intrigue and what direction we think we're heading. But more importantly, we don't know these guys. We don't know Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney and Ron Rivera here in Washington, okay? We don't know what these guys are going to do. Listening to Martin Mayhew talk about his track record as a GM and things that he's done in the past and how little others actually know about his philosophy in terms of drafting a quarterback and things of that nature, he says that's an advantage for him. And we'll talk more about what I was able to gain from listening to Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera, who both were on a Zoom conference call with the media for a pre-draft presser. And I actually gained a few items that I thought were noteworthy that we will discuss tonight. Also, I put out a video over the weekend that essentially asked you guys out there for what you felt like Washington should do with their first 2 days worth of picks, 4 selections in all. And I feel like that's where the bulk of what's going to happen in this draft is going to take place. Washington has 4 selections over the first 2 days, 1 in the first, 1 in the second, 2 in the third. We don't know if they're going to package up a third and a second to go back into the first to get a quarterback potentially, or are they going to just stand pat and make selections at every single pick? They have picks 19, 51, 74, and 82. And so for Washington, I think this is huge. I think those 4 picks are going to go a long way in determining how good Washington could potentially be in the 2021 season and maybe moving forward, depending on where those picks are spent, what they get out of those players. We know the track record here has not been good, especially in the second round. So I'm anxious. We haven't had a hit on a second round pick in over a decade. And I'm not exaggerating, okay? I'm not exaggerating when I say we have not had a hit on a second round pick in a decade. And it's probably even longer than that. So I'm anxious to see what happens in the second round. Last year, there was no real intrigue about the first round specifically because we knew what we were going to do at number 2. There was no climax. It was anticlimactic. There was no buildup. Last year would have been the worst year to have a draft party if it was just for Washington fans because it literally was 15 minutes. You sit there, Washington turns in the card, it's Chase Young, everybody drive safe, good night, and God bless, okay? This year, we're going to sit around for over an hour and a half, waiting, sitting on pins and needles. If that's even the case, Washington could do something crazy like trade up, and within the first 25 minutes of this draft, Washington's gone up and gotten a quarterback, and we're like, whoa, blown away. Highly unlikely, especially if you listen to Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera, highly unlikely that takes place. But when it's draft time, you rule nothing out. So let me give you a rundown of what you can expect from me over the next week and a half, because this is going to be crazy. It's going to be a whirlwind. We're going to be covering this draft wall to wall. I know most of you don't really give a shit about any other team other than Washington. Totally get that as well. But for those of you who are football fans that enjoy the entire league and everything that comes with the draft and all 32 teams, this, that, and the third, here's what you can expect from me over the next week and a half. So tonight we're going to do this show live as we're already doing, and it's already in progress. Tomorrow night, I'm going to release my first round mock draft, okay? And simultaneously, I'm going to release my rounds 4 through 7, so day 3 selections on the Flick app. So if you're not a member of the Flick app, you need to become one, because if you want quick early entry to what I think the team is going to do ultimately in day 3. Now, I'm not going to explain those picks. I'll save that for a video. I'm going to tell you when exactly here in a second. But if you just want to know what I'm thinking the team's going to do in rounds 4 through 7, and Washington doesn't have a 6th round pick, but they do have a 4th, a 5th, and a 7th. I think 2 7s if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to talk about all of those things in a separate video, but I am going to upload on the Flick app what I think Washington is going to do on day number 3 with my mock picks for the team early on Thursday. On Friday, you will get the full 7-round Washington football team mock draft that will be unveiled on Friday night. We'll watch that together live. I'll be in the chat with you discussing the picks and how I think things are going to unfold, and we'll be able to discuss those things as you're watching it live. We can be in dialogue. You can say, hey, Louie T, you're tripping. This is not going to happen. Or you can say, man, love the draft. Or you can say, I hate it. This is what I think we should do. And we'll be able to chop it up and go back and forth. That will be on Friday night. So Thursday, you'll get my mock draft. You'll get picks 1 through 16. And then there'll be a separate video for 17 through 32. And then on Friday, you will get my Washington football team 7th-round mock draft. All right. On Monday, we will come back and we will start breaking down positions that we have left on the table: corner, safety, offensive line. We'll try to get those positions. The only one I don't know if I'll be able to get to or not prior to the draft is the defensive line. We'll see. It's a weak defensive line, interior defensive line draft class anyhow, but still I would love to get to a couple of them just in case 1 or 2 of them is drafted in the 1st round. Highly unlikely. The only one I think may have a chance of being drafted in the 1st round is Christian Barmore from Alabama, but we'll see what happens in any event. But every day next week leading up to the draft, we will be breaking down some position heading into the draft. Wednesday night, we will be live one final time. Washington Football Report live day before the draft. We'll talk about all the ins and outs, any rumors that have surfaced right before the draft as we prepare for this epic draft that I think is going to be. We usually build up the draft and we talk about all these trades that could take place, and then we get a dud. I don't think that's happening this year. I do think we're going to see quite a bit of movement. I don't think it's going to be legendary where every 3 picks or so someone's trading up, but I do expect some movement in this 1st round, and I do think teams are going to be aggressive in going and getting their players. We'll talk about, you'll hear this ad nauseum, how deep the wide receiver draft class is this year, how deep the cornerback draft class to counter all the receivers that are going to be drafted in this year's draft is going to be. You'll hear about how deep the linebacker position may be, and even defensive end to a lesser degree, how deep that is and how other positions aren't as deep. But at the end of the day, you got to get yours while it's there to be got. And sometimes I've seen teams fall into the trap of saying, well, there's so many receivers in this draft, I don't have to draft one now. And you're sitting there with 3 or 4 guys that you love, but you're going to pass on them because you're saying to yourself, if I don't get one of these edge rushers now, they won't be available later. And then you double back to get the receivers, and there aren't any left that you really are excited about. I've seen that happen. So while we'll hear all about how you can wait on receiver and corner and you can get an offensive tackle later, if there's one you want now, you better get his ass now, because it's usually with tackles specifically, it's a limited quantity, okay? While supplies last, and they usually don't last very long. So if you want a corner, if you want a receiver, don't wait and say, well, I can get this guy from Texas Tech in the 5th round, or I can get Terry in the 6th or 7th round. Like, there's a big difference. There's a reason why Terry is in the 7th round available out of Florida State. There's a reason. People get excited about Nathan Vasher of Texas Tech. They're 6'5", and they run, and they're long, and they're this, and they're that. There's a reason why those guys, look, 6'5" is great. Everybody wants one of those. There's a reason why they're still around in the 6th, 7th round, or potentially could go undrafted. Don't be too patient to the point where you don't get anything worth having. So there's this kind of fine balance that you got to, walk, this tightrope that you walk in the draft. I'm anxious to see what Washington ultimately does this draft and how it all goes down. And so we'll talk about those things on Wednesday night next week heading into the draft. And then, of course, Thursday night, I will be live for the 2021 NFL Draft. We'll have the draft party here live on the LouieTeeNetwork. We'll cover that thing from start to finish. Then we'll come back. I'll probably produce a video from whomever Washington drafts after that 3-hour video is that live feed is done, because more likely than not we'll go 3 hours or so. The NFL usually runs a tight ship. Everybody has a set amount of time that they can take to make selections, and depending on if teams use the full allotment of time that they have will determine how long the show is and how long we'll be live. But I will put it at no longer than 3 hours and 30 minutes. After that's met its conclusion, whomever Washington is drafted, I will go back and then do a separate video that I will upload, and then we'll do it all over again on Friday night, as we will have day 2 of the draft. I'll be live again, draft party, second day, day 2, rounds 2 and 3. Washington has 3 picks on that day, so that will be as big a day as day number 1 for Washington, because to me, that's the meat and potatoes of this draft. I always talk about the first 2 days of the draft and how you need to make them impactful days. Really, I also lump in the first round of day number 3, which is the 4th round. Really feel like you need to hit on your 4th rounder if you can as well. Once you get into 5th, 6th, 7th, those are all roll of the dice type of selections. If you hit one, great, like we did with Cam Curl last year. If you don't, no one's really going to sweat you for that. It's what you do in the first 2 days of the draft that people are really going to judge you on. And if you're going to keep your job for longer than 3 or 4 years, it's usually going to be based off of how you do in the first 2 days of the draft. And if you can find a quarterback and make some shrewd moves and win some ball games, and a lot of that is tied to what happens in the first 2 days of the draft. So that's what the schedule looks like over the next week and a half. Hopefully you'll be able to join me for much of that. Looking forward to chopping it up and talking about one of the things we love the most about this sport, and that's the NFL Draft. So with that said, let's get to what I want to start the show with. There is a super chat, so I do want to get to that real quick. And then I'll talk about the main event of today's show, which is the presser from Ron Rivera and Martin Mayhew. And then we'll take any comments that we may have after that. So Pac-Man D3, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Pac-Man D3 writes, Lou, glad you're back. Glad to be back. Thank you. Really do appreciate that. Really want us to pick Zaven Collins. I'm going to tell you right now, man. Excuse me. I don't think they're going to take him. And I think he's going to be available. I don't anticipate him going before 19. And I don't think they're going to take him. I found some things that Ron said, and one in particular, to be very, very interesting. I thought he shed some light on how they view the linebacker position in particular. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. I think that's a perfect segue, because that was one of the biggest takeaways I had from the presser with Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera. Also, that I don't anticipate anything massive going down, again, unless a quarterback kind of starts to fall into their lap. Maybe then and only then would they make a move. But I don't see them making some grandiose move to go up and get a quarterback. They're not trading to 4 with Atlanta. They're not trading to 7 with Detroit or 6 with Miami if they want to get out of there, because neither one of the guys that they traded up to get are available. They're not trading up to 8 at Carolina. Excuse me. But as you start to get into, 12, 13 range, that's when I think Washington will start to have their antennas go up. And that's when I think they get a little bit antsy, like, hey, man, we didn't expect this guy to be here, but he's within striking distance. What do you think? I think that's when you'll start to see Washington get a little aggressive if a situation should arise. But I don't think that's going to happen. I honestly think we're going to see 5 quarterbacks go in the top 10, which is asinine. But I do think we're going to see 5 quarterbacks go in the top 10 of this 21 NFL draft. And it's not uncommon that we see a bunch of quarterbacks go early. We've seen 4 quarterbacks. What was it? As recent as 2018, that was the Darnold, Allen, Mayfield, and Rosen draft. And we saw 4 quarterbacks. Rosen, I believe, went 10th overall in that draft. So we saw 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10 of that draft. It's not uncommon to see that happen. We've seen 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10 before. I don't think we see 5, though. I don't think I've ever seen 5 go in the first 10. Not to say that it's never happened. I just don't recall that happening. With me being a really keen observer, I can't remember. I can't recall a draft in which 5 quarterbacks were taken in the first 10 picks, and I don't even think we're going to get to 10 before all 5 of these quarterbacks are off the board. That's how aggressive I think teams are going to be. If the one guy that may slip out of the top 10, and he shouldn't be there to begin with, but that doesn't matter when we're talking quarterbacks. None of it never matters. Is Mac Jones. And if he doesn't get picked early, I could see him not getting picked until, 13, 12, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there. He's not going to make it all the way to New England at 15. If they want him, they're going to have to move up to get him. So it's amazing how these quarterbacks get pushed up. It really is. I mean, it is just crazy to watch. And hell, it's getting to the point now where Davis Mills, who a lot of people thought, hey, you can get him late day 2 as a 3rd round pick. He might creep into the 1st round. Shit, he might creep into the upper half of the 1st round before we get to 20. It's crazy, but that's where we are right now. I've even seen mock drafts where the Bears are taking Davis Mills at 20. So this thing could get crazy, with draft picks. That won't benefit us any, so I really don't give a shit what the Bears do. They're behind us unless they come up in front of us. I care less what happens, beyond us. But anything before us, I'm intrigued by it because it impacts us, whether directly or indirectly, whether that was a guy we were targeting or it's allowing a guy that we want to fall into our lap. Either way, I am intrigued by the first 18 picks. And that's kind of where we start the discussion because Ron made it abundantly clear. We're going to react to the 18 picks that are made before us as to what we're going to do at 19. Obviously, that goes without saying. I mean, that's an understatement that Ron's making, and you're almost saying, duh. But when the draft takes place, you really have to take that into consideration. Like, we always talk about, well, what if this player's there, or what if this player's there? Should we take this guy? And I'm like, well, what else is on the board? Like, you just because a player is there that you like doesn't mean there isn't a player that you like even more that's on the board that actually fits a need. So it's hard to say what a team should or shouldn't do without having all the facts. And that's essentially what Ron was saying. Like, look, we could trade up. We could trade back. We might stand pat. All of these things are on the table because we don't know what's going to happen in front of us. All we can do is react to what's going on. A guy that we didn't think, for instance, a Devontae Smith, they may have a really high grade on Devontae Smith. Like, hey, we got a 93 on this guy, but we don't think he's going to be around come 15 or so. And say the Patriots, they're so hell-bent on getting a quarterback that everybody said he won't get past the Patriots at 15. Well, they're like, to hell with a receiver. We got a bunch of those in free agency. We want a quarterback. And so they're not even worried about receiver. And somehow Devontae Smith is sitting there at 16 and Washington's like, look, I don't think he's going to make it, past the Dolphins at 18. We got to go up and get this guy. And so he's now in our wheelhouse. Well, they're reacting to what happened in the first 15 picks, which saw Devontae Smith fall out of the top 10, past the top 15, and now he's sitting there at 16. And now they're thinking to themselves, hey, everybody wants to talk about the weight. We saw he weighed 166 pounds, and that's tough for a lot of people to swallow. That is a bitter pill for a lot of people to swallow. Some people can't get past that. He played it. Did you think differently of him when you thought he was 175 pounds? Because, hell, that's what we thought he was at Alabama this whole time. So is 11 pounds going to change your mind? If you think the guy can play, then he can play. Whether he's a $166 or a $175, that's 9 pounds. What difference does it make? If you thought he was a baller before you found out he was a $166, you should still think he's a baller now. Either way, Washington could be saying, look, we don't give a shit about 166, 175, 185. This guy's a beast. Add him to the mix with Terry and Curtis Samuel and Adam Humphries, and we think we got something. No matter who's at quarterback. And they say, we're going up and we're going to get him. And it's not going to take a lot to go from 19 up to 16. It's not going to kill you. So that's what I mean by reacting to what's happening around you. We don't know what's going to happen. Ron's like, I don't know what's going to happen. But what we are going to do is we're going to have a plan. That's all we can ask for. Ron's plan. Ron's plan. All we can ask for is for Ron to have a plan in place so that if plan A isn't available, if plan B isn't available, they can go to plan C. And I've always talked about this, and I told you guys about this. Always have a contingency plan. And Ron's essentially saying, we'll be prepared. You know, if this guy is who we really want isn't there, and this next guy is on our list and he's not available, we'll have another guy or two or three waiting. And I remember listening to Jay Gruden. He was on one of these podcasts. Don't know if it was Ben Standick's podcast or if it was on with Kevin Sheehan. And he said, we really, in the draft in which Washington took Josh Doctson, he said, we really wanted Ryan Kelly, the center from Alabama. We really wanted him bad. And the Colts jumped in front of us and took him. And we really didn't have a contingency plan. Like, that goes to show you just how disheveled and narrow-minded this organization was to not have another contingency plan in place in case the guy that and it's not like Washington was sitting there at 6 and they had a list of 6 guys. They were at 20 or 21 in that draft. Like, you should have had a list of 7 or 8 guys that you were comfortable taking at 21 or whatever it was, that you said, look, if this guy isn't here, one of these guys is going to be here. Like, we're not going to strike out on 7 guys in the top 21 of this draft. They were fixated on Ryan Kelly. The Colts swoop up and get him, and now they're kind of shuffling their papers, as a wise man once said, and they didn't know what to do, so they trade back one spot, allow the Texans to take Will Fuller, the 5th, which was a fleece job because he turned out to be the better of the 2 receivers, obviously, and we moved back a spot and we took Josh Doctson because we didn't know what to do. Didn't have any other recourse of action. So it sounds like Ron and Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney and everybody involved, they're going to have a plan. No matter what happens, they're going to be prepared. That's good to know because obviously the last group wasn't. And that's why we kept striking out in the second round. That's why we took the Josh Doctsons and the Sua Cravens and the Ryan Andersons of the world because we weren't thoroughly prepared. So that was the first thing I took away, was that Ron's saying, look, I don't really know what the hell's going to happen. None of us do. Nobody does. Okay? He said, look, and Martin Mayhew, just to add to that, Martin Mayhew also said, look, I've already talked to, GMs in front of us, 5, 6 teams ahead of us, 3 or 4 teams behind us, just to get a feel for what somebody may want to do. Hey, if we're interested in going up, we now know the price. We have a ballpark idea of what it's going to cost to get to 12, with the Eagles, or to get to 11 with the Giants, or to get to 13 or 14 with the Vikings. They kind of have an idea. He's already called these teams. He says, hey, call Chicago at 20, okay? Made a call to the Jets at 23, just in case somebody wants to come up. We know what the dialogue already is. So they're prepared for whatever comes their way, whether it's to go up, whether it's to move back, whether it's to stand pat. That's just comforting to know, because the last group, I don't think they were really prepared for these things. Okay? Kind of just doing things off the cuff, off a whim, and where the direction the wind blew, that's where they were going to go. And usually that wind was blowing down south in the direction of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Because that's what they did. The default was, hey, we don't know what the hell to do. Take a Bama player. They always bail us the hell out. So, thought that was interesting. One of the biggest takeaways in this draft from their pre-draft presser was the fact that Ron went into specifics as to what he looks for in a linebacker, talked about what guys have to be able to do in the scheme to make them feel comfortable with selecting that guy. Ron always talks about positional flex. That's never going to change. That's his thing, okay? Some guys want to talk about people being, players being football players. Some people want to talk about how fast a guy runs, their IQ, all of that stuff. Ron wants to talk about positional flex. That's what he's concerned about. Can you do multiple things, specifically at the linebacker position? And as we see with players who have played the game, they are a lot harsher when it comes to their particular position because they know it more so than any other position on the field. If you listen to Chris Cooley talk, he's hypercritical of tight ends. Why? He knows the position. He knows what it's supposed to look like. Ron Rivera, same thing. Hypercritical of linebackers. Why? He played the linebacker position, so he's hypercritical of what he expects out of his linebackers. Quarterbacks, same way. You were a quarterback, whether you played like Jay Gruden, for instance, played in the Arena League, hypercritical of the quarterback position. Knows what it's supposed to look like, when the ball is supposed to come out. So Ron was talking about linebackers and in particular what they look for. And he said, look, our Sam backer, and I dove into what the history was of Marty Herney and Rivera together in Carolina, looked at specific players and the fit in their defensive scheme. And even on the offensive side, even though Ron kind of turns that over to whoever his offensive coordinator is, Ron usually doesn't meddle with that side of the football. He's interested in how you're doing things, but as far as personnel is concerned, he usually turns that over to whomever is running the offense and says, hey, look, I watched this guy. I know he's a baller. If you think he can fit in your scheme, we'll do it. But Ron's hands-on, especially when it comes to defenders. And he said, look, for the linebacker position, if you're going to get a Sam backer, he's got to be able to play our Buffalo nickel, which is their big nickel package. They call it their Buffalo. And we saw Cam Curl do that a little bit for us last year. I think we're going to see that again a little bit this year. But in particular, he's saying, and remember, last year, we kept asking, why is Cole Holcomb playing the Sam? Why is he playing strong side backer? It didn't make sense. Like, we're wasting a guy at Sam backer that should be our weak side linebacker and running with these slot receivers. And so we allowed KPL to do that, and he was getting toasted by tight ends and struggling at times. And we were like, just put Cole Holcomb over there. But the Sam, to me, if you ask me, after the middle linebacker, your Mike, the next most important linebacker position in this defense is your Sam. And normally it's your Will, because you're going to ask your Will to do a lot of athletic things that your Sam backer generally isn't capable of doing. But in this defense, I think it's actually the opposite. Your Sam backer has to be physical in the run game, number one, have to be able to drop over the tight end and run with that tight end. But also, and Ron said this, he's got to be able to play multiple positions. He's got to be able to do the big nickel, the big nickel, that Buffalo nickel as they call it. But he's also got to be able to handle some of the responsibilities of a weak side backer and have the versatility to juggle both, which we know that they loved. One of the first guys Ron talked about when he got this job, coincidentally enough, was Cole Holcomb, because of his positional flex and his ability to be able to play both Sam and Will. And I think in a pinch, I think Cole Holcomb's smart enough. He did it at UNC. I think he could play, the Mike. But that's nor here nor there. They loved his versatility, and they feel like if you're going to have a Sam, he's got to be able to play Will too. Interesting. And play that big nickel. Okay, because when they go to their nickel and they take a linebacker off the field, and this is something else Ron told us during his presser, your Will has to be able to play Mike as well, and vice versa. Your Mike is the coach of the defense, essentially. As we saw last year in this defense, the Mike never comes off the field. If that guy is a leader, if he knows the defense in and out, and they feel good enough about his athletic exploits, he won't come off the field. John Bostic never came off the field last year. Whether we were in nickel, whether we were in dime, it didn't matter. John Bostic's ass was always on the field. It drove us nuts. So the Mike backer is the most important. We know that to be a fact. But I think the next most important is the Sam backer. He's on the field a ton. Okay? Then you get to your weak side backer. He said, look, the weak side backer has to be able to play weak side, obviously, be able to run, do all those things. But we need that guy to also have the ability to play the mic as well. So if we shift over, we're playing an over front, that guy's got to be able to step in the middle and play and us not have a drop off there. So I found that interesting, and it kind of led me to feel differently about what they were potentially thinking about doing at 19. Listening to him talk and explain the kind of versatility they're looking for, but specifically the versatility that they're looking for in a Sam versus a Will and a Mike, it got me to thinking, and I look at Shaq Thompson and I see the skill set that he possesses, and he was their Sam backer. He was their big nickel, if you will, in Carolina. And it got me to thinking, and remember, it was a two-man show out there. Obviously, when Thomas Davis was still there, it was Davis as your Will. It was Shaq Thompson as your Sam, and of course Luke Kuechly as their Mike. That's when they were at their highest power. Okay, when their superpowers were their greatest at the linebacker position, that's what it looked like. I could see them doing something like that at 19, taking a linebacker. I think there are other positions that they've got an eye on, but if this draft shakes out the way that I think it's going to shake out, ultimately I think they're going to be left with linebacker and not much else as an option at 19. I think I feel comfortable with what I mocked them to take at 19. And some of you are going to be like, what? I think it's a realistic possibility. I really, really do. So really interested with what they had to say about, or Ron in particular, about what they had to say at the linebacker position and what they look for. Martin Mayhew, he was a lot more reserved, close to the vest, pretty much was like, hey, not telling you that, or, you know, kind of giving a vague blanket statement for every answer, which is fine. I don't want them divulging too much information anyway. And, you know, he talked about the lack of, you know, essentially information out there about what he views to be the qualities and traits that he looks for in a quarterback, because the only quarterback he was responsible for selecting was Matthew Stafford. That was a no-brainer pick back in, what, 07, 08? That was a no-brainer pick. Matthew Stafford's the number one quarterback in the draft. You got the number one pick. You need a quarterback. Your team just went 0-16 the year before. So what are we talking about? You make the pick. So nobody really got to, you know, look at his track record and say, well, he traded up for this quarterback and this guy did this and Stafford did this. So we can see some of the parallels and to compare and contrast what these guys have, strengths, weaknesses. And so we can kind of see what, if one of these quarterbacks this year kind of stack up to what he's done in the past. There isn't that out there on Martin Mayhew. And he also said this, I found this very interesting. It was probably the most interesting thing and tidbit we got from Martin Mayhew, which is why I don't think they're going to necessarily jump up the board to get one of these quarterbacks. Again, if they were to fall into their lap or get within striking distance, I think they would then opt to go after one of these guys. But Martin Mayhew said, I like my quarterbacks to have on-the-job training, as much experience as you, and we don't see a lot of that in college football anymore. One of the few quarterbacks in this year's draft class with real experience are really the two guys that are going to go 1-2. You know, Trevor Lawrence played 3 years essentially as the starter. The first year, I think he didn't start the first 2 games or so. And then after that, he took over and he was the starter from that point on, led them to a national championship. They never looked back. He's got over 30 starts under his belt. You know, Zach Wilson, another guy, 3-year starter, plenty of starts under his belt. You can see the maturation from 18 to 19 and then ultimately everything coming together in 2020. And that's what you want to see as an evaluator, is you want to see growth from players. Look, he might have had some rough games in 18. He got better in 19, and then in 2020, he took that leap and showed you he's got it now. It clicked. And so that's what a body of work can do for you. You're not getting that with Justin Fields. There's 2 years of experience. And look, 2 years is nothing to scoff at with the climate that we're in college football now. Davis Mills, much like Dwayne Haskins and some of these other guys that we've seen come out here recently, 1 year of experience. Mitchell Trubisky, another 1 year of experience guy. All right. Davis Mills doesn't even have a full year pieced together. He's got 6 starts this year. I think he had 5 last year. He's got like 11 total starts. That's not enough for you to really be able to assess Davis Mills. You can project from the skill set, the arm strength, the athleticism, the size. There are certain points in games, like the final game he played in against UCLA, where you see some moxie and some poise because he made mistakes, but he wiped the memory bank clean. And when they needed it at the end, he took them down the field and delivered a touchdown pass. Like, these are things you can see, but it's small doses, small sample sizes. So it's hard. And Mayhew said, look, I would prefer my guys to have experience. Well, you're not getting that with Trey Lance. Only 1 year of starters experience. Only 17 starts. I don't even count that last start that he had this year, that showcase game. That's bullshit. 16 starts for Trey Lance. Okay, 11 for Davis Mills. Only 1 full season for Mac Jones. You want to throw in the last 4 games or so he started in 2019? Knock yourself out. I'm not going to hold that against you. There was some high-level competition in some of those games at the end of that season. Bowl game versus Michigan, the Auburn game on the road. There's some games at the end of that season for Mac Jones. But still, you're talking about every bit of 17, 18 starts for Mac Jones. What did they play this year? Probably 15 games maybe. Add the 4 from the year before, maybe 5 max. You got 20 starts total. That's not that far away from where Justin Fields is in 2 years. Because the Big Ten didn't have a full season this year, they only played in 6, 7 games max. You add that to the 13, 14 he played the year before, you're talking about 21, 22 starts max. These are not guys with 30 plus starts. So Mayhew said, look, it is what it is, but I'd prefer my quarterback to have a little bit more experience. So I don't think they're going to jump up. I think they would be more inclined to look at a guy like Kellen Mond. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do, but Kellen Mond is a 4-year starter at Mississippi State. Like, Kellen Mond's been at school. He reminds me of the guy that's been in college basketball for 8 years, and you're like, man, this guy hasn't graduated yet. That's because he played as a true freshman. And, in college basketball, if you're any good, if you're going to get drafted in the first round, you're gone after a year or two. And some of these guys, they don't know when they're going to get drafted, if at all, so they stick around, and you're like, damn, this guy's still here? Yeah, he's still here. That's how I felt about Kellen Mond. Damn, Kellen Mond is still at Mississippi State? Well, or Texas A&M, excuse me. So, but you got to see the maturation over a 4-year period from 17 to 18 to 19, and finally all culminating in his best season in 2020. And you get to say, I see the growth. I saw a guy that the light bulb came on for. Again, I'm not saying that that's who they're going to go after, but that's what Mayhew pretty much said. That's what I would prefer when I'm evaluating a quarterback. Interesting stuff, because you're not getting that in this year's draft. They talked about the offensive line, and he said, especially the tackle position, which we know we're in the market for. I wouldn't rule out guard either, especially with Sheriff and the contract situation. They may view him. I still think that they feel like even if Sheriff, and he might have made it, Sheriff's reps may have made it abundantly clear, we don't intend on signing a long-term deal, so you could just save your offers until next year. That we're not saying Brandon doesn't want to be back. He loves it in Washington. He wants to be back. You guys put him in a position of power. He's going to make $18 million this year. Nobody else in the guard market is even making 14. Like, the man made 15 last year, and you're upping it by $3 more million. You think we're going to sign a long-term deal? You're crazy. But that doesn't mean we don't love you, and we'll sign a long-term deal next year. Okay? But we're not signing it this year. That could be the case. And that's why Ron and company may not have extended another offer, because they turned it down and said, look, no disrespect to your offer. We love this offer. And if this were a normal circumstance, we would sign this offer. It's a great offer. But we're on a second franchise tag. We don't have to sign this thing. We're gonna get 18 this year. That's fresh off of the 15 we got last year. We're going to go ahead and take this 18 for one more year of service, and then we'll sign a long-term deal with a bunch of guaranteed money after that. And it may be with you, it may not be with you, but we don't feel any less about you guys. So they may know that Sheriff wants to be back. He just doesn't want to sign a long-term deal now. And they could do it with the cap situation that they had. They had enough money to be able to invest 18 in 1 year in Brandon Sheriff and keep him around. However, they could be looking for an alternate there. And an alternative for the future if Sheriff were not to come back. But specifically, they talked about evaluating offensive linemen that play in the spread. And I've always said it's a tough eval with some of these offensive linemen that play in these spread offenses because you're not seeing them do a lot of the things that you're going to ask an NFL offensive lineman to do. There are times in these spread offenses where you're not even blocking the guy in front of you. You know, you're immediately going to a double team to wash a guy down inside and then get to the second level and come off of that double team and try to get to the second level. And that's just not how the NFL works. You know, there's not going to be many plays where the guy in front of you, they're running the football to your side and you're not going to block the guy in front of you. That's not going to happen very often, where you're just going to ignore guys in front of you, you know, where you don't put your hand down in the dirt. You're always in a 2-point stance. These are things that they talked about. So I find it really interesting how they evaluate some of these players. I still would love to know what positions they feel really good about. I can tell you this. I listened to Ron and Martin Mayhew. I also listened to Ron again. I had to go back and put my listening ears on to the presser he had on April the 1st. After it was really a post-free agency presser, if you will, even though they weren't quite done yet. And technically they are done. I think for now, you could see them make some more moves post-draft. You know, if you don't get a position or two that you really liked, maybe you go out and sign a guy. There'll be a couple of maybe a June 1 casualties that may hit the market that may intrigue this team. We'll see. But I went back to that first interview on April 1st when it was just Ron by himself. And he talked about what they did in free agency, targeting some of the positions to lessen the need in the draft. And I think the position that they targeted the most in free agency was the secondary, really, specifically the cornerback position and wide receiver, which is why I don't think they're going to go after a receiver unless a guy literally falls into their lap that they absolutely love. And they just can't pass it up. It's just too good of a value. And that's another thing that they spoke about, both Martin Mayhew and Ron Rivera, not to go off subject, but just to kind of bring it all full circle, is that everything is about value. And, you know, I'm a big value guy in the draft. However, I'm also a guy that says, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. I may ridicule you and everybody else may ridicule you for getting a guy that we think you got way too early. And the value just simply isn't there. However, if you're not sure if you're going to be able to get this guy, maybe you've got a second round grade on him, but you really want this guy. But you know, if I don't get him here, I won't be able to get him. And now you have to weigh, all right, is it worth me taking a guy with much better value here in the first round and then I'll give you an example. I'll give you a great example of this. And I'll double back to what I was talking about before this leaves my brain. In my mind, Washington needs a tight end. I think this is not a deep tight end draft class. It's just not. If you really like one of the guys in the second round, Pat Freiermuth comes to mind, would fit this team perfectly. You got to get him, I think, before Jacksonville does. I think that's the team that's going to draft Pat Freiermuth. I don't think anybody's looking to spend a first-round pick on Pat Freiermuth. I don't. But the Jacksonville Jaguars could if they want to. Why? They have 2 first-round picks. They could draft Trevor Lawrence at 1 and then turn around at 25, which they got from the Rams, and draft Pat Freiermuth. Is that early for him? Yeah. Is that great value? Probably not. But guess what? They got their guy. It's not great value if you ask me. He's a second-round pick. You don't have to take him at 25. Not when you got 33, the first pick of the second round. You take him then. There's a better player on the board, I guarantee you, that would fit a need in Jacksonville at 25. Here's the problem, though, if you're Jacksonville. Somebody can jump in front of you. Tampa Bay's dying to get out of 32. Generally, the team that wins the Super Bowl, that pick's for sale. Because when you win the Super Bowl, a lot of times, this isn't always the case, but a lot of times, you don't have massive holes on your roster. Okay, especially like Tampa, who just brought back everything. Not some of it, everything that helped them win the Super Bowl. They brought them all back. Ndamukong Suh. All right. Chris Godwin. Shaq Barrett. Levante David. You name it, they're back. Hell, even Leonard Fournette is back. They brought the whole gang back. They don't need anything at 32 in particular. So they're dying to get out of that pick. So if you want Pat Freiermuth, somebody could just leapfrog you. That's why 32 is always a hot spot, because you're worried about that team in the second round that has the first pick. What are they going to do? You start sizing up their needs and what you think they're going to do. And you say, if I want the guy that I think they're going to take at 32, 33, I need to get to 32 to get him. That could happen in Jacksonville. So what Jacksonville could order. So if Washington said, you know what, Tampa? Jacksonville's going to take Pat Freiermuth at 33. We know this for a fact. We want him bad. He's the only guy at the tight end position in this draft other than Kyle Pitts that we would consider taking. So we want him bad. And we feel like that's the missing piece on this offense is we need another tight end. So tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you 51, and we're going to toss in a fourth. We're not going to give you any of our thirds, but we'll toss you our second rounder and our fourth rounder to go up and get the 32nd pick in the draft. And Tampa Bay will probably do it. They might say, I don't want your fourth round pick. I want one of them third rounders, though. Give me your second and your third, and we'll call it a deal. Whatever. Now you got your guy. So I said all of that to say this. Washington said, look, Rivera and Mayhew said, look, we view every single pick as capital. You can use that capital to move back. You can use that capital to move up. But it's capital. Or you can just get a really good football player where you sit in the draft. But all of it is capital. We don't know how we're going to utilize this capital, but we have it. So that's something else to take into consideration, that, you know, they're not looking at their pick as a player. They're looking at that pick, which they should, as capital. They should look at it as capital. We don't know what player we're going to get with this pick, but we do know we have this pick. This pick has XYZ value, so we can use it to move up. We can use it to move back and acquire more capital, which I love the way the Dolphins are maneuvering this draft. Because the Dolphins moved back, got a bunch of draft capital. They moved back up, but they still netted themselves way more capital moving back than what they gave up to move up. And if what they want isn't there at 6, there's a rumor that they're willing to move back again. So they got all the chess pieces to be able to move up, back, forward, left, right, up, down. It doesn't matter. They can do whatever they like in the draft because they got 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s. And they just keep accumulating picks for the future. That's how you maneuver the draft. If I want a guy, go get him. If I don't want anything here and somebody wants to come up, I'll move back. There are some GMs don't want any parts of trading. Dave Gettleman has never traded back in his 8 years as a GM, whether it's in Carolina or now in New York. Never traded back. Some guys just don't believe in that. So they're open-minded in Washington is all I'm saying, and I love that as well. But to go back to my initial point, which was Ron talked about filling needs on this team via free agency to give them the flexibility that they need to not reach. And they spoke about that during the pre-draft presser, about not reaching for a guy out of necessity, which we know that's how you get yourself into trouble. But, you know, a guy that we didn't talk about really at all was Roberts, the nickel corner that they signed from Detroit. They really like this guy. Like, we just kind of glossed over it, like, because his signing was kind of simultaneous with something else that happened, and I don't think it was William Jackson. I think it was with Adam Humphries. I think Adam Humphries signed, and then we got Roberts like maybe a day later, might have been the same day or a day later. And so nobody was talking about that signing. But we got ourselves a nickel corner right there that they really liked. And remember, I felt like we were hurting the nickel last year. In the slot, I thought teams took advantage of us. I didn't think Jimmy Moreland was all that great inside. He had his moments, but for the most part, he struggled. Teams took advantage of us inside. So they like this Roberts guy. I still got work to do on him to see what he brings to the table, but they really like him. They feel like they've upgraded the position. I don't think they view corner as big a need now. I don't think they're opposed to adding another corner. I think they like the depth that they've created with the two guys that they've added to this ball club in William Jackson III and Roberts. I think they like that now they've got a little bit of depth more so than they did before. Obviously, you still got Jimmy. They brought back Danny Johnson. So you're not as pressed to do something. I don't think they're going to just bypass the cornerback position altogether. I still think they're going to add a guy or two, in that secondary in particular. I don't see any way we come out of this draft without a safety. I don't see us not getting a corner either at some point. But Ron made it abundantly clear. They felt like they needed to patch up a couple of positions so that they didn't feel the need to reach in the draft, and they've done that. So that tells you what they viewed as their biggest positions of need. And then Ron doubled back and said, we really wanted to keep KPL, which I told you I didn't think he was going to be back, but I told you I didn't think he was going to be back because Ron and company didn't love him. That was false if you listen to Ron. And Ron hasn't lied to me yet. I have no reason to call Ron's bluff at this moment because Ron's never lied to me. At this point, Ron's been very transparent. He told us that when he got here. I'm a pretty transparent dude. I say how I feel, and I mean what I say. He's been pretty much spot on to this point. The only thing that was a little sketchy was the whole, beginning of the season, taking knees and not calling timeouts and all that bullshit. That was a little sketchy, but we got past that. Outside of that, Ron's been pretty much straightforward. So when he says, no, we loved KPL, we really wanted him back, we're actually disappointed he signed elsewhere. That tells me that they really need to upgrade linebacker. They really wanted him back, and now they feel that hit of not having KPL back. They signed a bunch of bums, dudes from Carolina that don't get anybody excited, don't get them excited. They're going to do something at linebacker. That's the one position right now I can say that they feel like, man, we have to do something. No other position I don't think they feel like that at. Do they want to upgrade tackle? Sure. Would they like to upgrade corner? Absolutely. Do they want to upgrade safety? Yes. Do they have to do those positions? No, they don't. If we had to play a game tomorrow with the roster the way it is right now, they'd be comfortable at every position except linebacker. And that's why you got to think to yourself, what are they going to do? Are they going to address this early or are they going to wait? I think they're going to address it early. If the guy that they want is there, we'll see what happens. So let's get to some super chats. I think I got a few of them here. Got a super chat here from Ephraim the Faithful. Thank you for the super chat, Ephraim the Faithful, who writes, what about trading back to the end of round one and drafting quarterback Mills for a 5-year contract? So here's the thing about drafting Davis Mills. If you're Washington, how far back are you willing to go? Because you're building for the long term. And let me say something else, because the point you just made with that statement kind of leads me to something somebody else brought up last week. I believe it was either last week or the week before, because Ron spoke on the 1st of April, so it's been a while. But I had it on, but I wasn't listening intently. I went back, I told you, with my listening ears on, and Ron said something that I've been preaching for a very long time, which is, Ron said, when I was in Carolina, we drafted Cam Newton, and he didn't have anything around him, really. Nothing rich to speak of. There were a few pieces, but the core of what we would ultimately be wasn't there yet. He was essentially strapping us to his back and trying to carry us in those first years. And the talent around him was lean at best. It wasn't until 2015, which we know that was an MVP season for Cam Newton. He was surrounded by a bunch of guys. I didn't think they were overly talented then either, though. Ted Ginn and D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart at the running back position, but I don't think they were overly loaded at the receiver position. Greg Olsen was obviously a massive contributor there for a while, but he felt like they ultimately got to where they needed to be by the time they got to 2015 and that magical 15-1 season and run to the Super Bowl. He said, but you know what? What if you do it in reverse? What if you don't have the quarterback, but you got all the other stuff and you continue to build so that when you finally find the quarterback, you can just drop him in the middle, which is what I've been saying. We've been having that discussion. And I told you, I want to follow the Seattle Seahawks early 20-teens model of you build up the infrastructure. You build all of the ancillary parts around the infrastructure so that that quarterback is insulated. So when you drop him in, you're ready to take off. If that guy is what you think he is, a la Russell Wilson, you drop him in there, and in Russell Wilson's rookie season, you're in the divisional round. In Russell Wilson's second season, you're hoisting a Lombardi. And in his third season, you should have won another one if you just handed off to Marshawn Lynch. That's what you get when you, and again, not everybody's Russell Wilson. Not every team is going to drop Russell Wilson in the middle. I get that. But if you get it right, if you do it right, and you drop the right quarterback inside, that could be the end result. And Ron said, what if you do it that way? I say, yeah, I want to do it that way, Ron, which is why they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick. So he made that clear that, and this is another reason why I don't think they're going after quarterback. He keeps talking about these things and dropping breadcrumbs, and you can either ignore it or you can pick the breadcrumb up and eat it and say, okay, I see where this is going. He's dropping breadcrumbs. He's telling us, hey, we're not taking a quarterback. We're going to continue to build this thing and get to a point where no matter who we put at quarterback, we can't fail. And if we put the right guy at quarterback, we're going to take off. And we're going to be a team to compete with and have to deal with for a number of years. And that's where they're trending. So I don't see them drafting a quarterback. But to your point, if you trade back and select Davis Mills in the first round, you're passing up an opportunity to continue to build up the infrastructure. You got a golden opportunity. We talked about spillage. I don't know how much of that spillage is truly going to reach Washington at 19. As I sat down and constructed this mock draft, what you realize is there ain't but so much spillage that could get to Washington. And teams in front of you aren't going to allow that spillage to fully reach you, because they're sitting there looking at these selections and saying, what the hell is this guy doing here? Well, we weren't going to take him, but he's here. So I'm going to, instead of taking a guy that I thought was going to be here, I'm going to take this guy instead. So I don't think the spillage is necessarily going to reach Washington as much as I thought it could. Again, and I don't know how this thing is going to go. It could go in a different direction than what I mocked it to do, and some spillage could reach us. Either way, you got a chance to draft a really good football player is what I'm trying to say at 19, more likely than not. Are you really going to give that up? It's similar to what happened with Green Bay. The difference for me with Green Bay is they got Aaron Rodgers. So they can do reckless shit with their first round pick and it not cost them. Like the Green Bay fan base and even Aaron Rodgers himself was pissed. Why? Because we're trying to win a Super Bowl and you want to trade up for a quarterback? That guy's not helping us win now. So why would you do that? Well, they're thinking, hey, you're Aaron Rodgers, right? You'll figure it out. Don't worry. And Aaron Rodgers had an MVP season and got him to the NFC Championship game. He did figure it out. We're not the Green Bay Packers. We don't have Aaron Rodgers. Can you afford to trade back and draft Davis Mills? I would contend that if you really love Davis Mills, you don't trade back and select Davis Mills. You select a guy at 19 and then you trade back up like we did for Montez Sweat back into the first round to select Davis Mills. Now, again, who knows? The Bears are sitting right behind us at 20, and they could be saying, if he's not going by 20, we're taking him at 20. And now you don't have a chance to take Davis Mills. But if you trade, even in your scenario, you say trade back, there's no guarantee that Davis Mills is going to be there. That's why you can't make deals like that. You have to understand the psychology behind what you do in the draft. That's why you don't see a lot of pre-draft trades, because if you're making a trade, it's because you have a specific player or players, maybe two, in mind, and you have to be sure that that guy is going to be there. That's why the 49ers could make the deal before the draft, because they're moving up to 3. They already know the 2 players that are getting drafted 1 and 2, so they know what's going to be available at 3, so they can make the deal. If you're trading back from 19 to, say, 27, you can't be sure that somebody's not going to take Davis Mills. You may be trading back saying, hey, if Mills is available, we'll take him. But you have to be trading back saying to yourself, whatever happens, we like 5 guys, and there's no way in these 8 picks that the 5 guys that we love are going to be all gone. So we're cool with moving back. We feel like the value is back at 27. It's not here at 19. That's why you would move back. You wouldn't move back with the mindset of one guy in particular, Davis Mills. Because, again, he could not be there now. You traded back for what? You didn't get your guy. It wouldn't be trade back for Davis Mills. It would take somebody at 19 and then come back up for Davis Mills if you so choose. That would be the move. Thank you for the super chat, Ephraim the Faithful. Got another super chat. This one is from Trevor Patch. Thank you for the super chat, Trevor Patch. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, the only seasoned quarterback in our strike zone is Kellen Mond. That is correct. That's the guy that I brought up. I don't want him. If they drafted him, I wouldn't be elated. I wouldn't be upset, but I wouldn't be elated about that, because I don't think Kellen Mond is going to come in and have a stellar NFL career. You know, I've already told you who he reminds me of. He reminds me of Brett Hundley. You know, I don't think he's going to come in here. He's one of 2 guys. He's either Brett Hundley or he's Dak Prescott. I don't think he's Dak Prescott. That's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. He could be closer to Dak Prescott than that of Brett Hundley, but I think he's more of a Josh Dobbs, Brett Hundley type, a guy that's going to end up being somebody's backup quarterback, journeyman, hanging around the league because he's got measurables and some talent, but never a guy that you view as a true starter in this league. That's how I view Kellen Mond. Whereas Dak Prescott got drafted, started as a rookie, and just got better and better and better every single year in Dallas. I don't see that being the case for Kellen Mond. So we'll see. But you're right. The only seasoned quarterback in our strike zone is, in fact, Kellen Mond. And really, there aren't many seasoned quarterbacks worth taking in this draft to begin with. I mean, you look at the crop. Most of these guys don't have a ton of starts under their belt. That's just the nature of the position these days. Really, if you're being honest with one another, is that we're seeing guys wait their turn at a school just to play for 1 year, light it up, and now you got to evaluate them off that 1 year because they sat for 4 years behind a guy, redshirted 1 year, and now that guy finally leaves, and you just got 1 year to prove yourself. We see it all the time. Especially at schools like Alabama. Mac Jones could have left. He could have left. He decided to wait. And it's not like he just waited behind Tua. He waited behind Hurts. He waited behind Tua. Tua came in, jumped the line, and got in front of him. And then, once Tua finally left, and Tua could have came back for 1 more year. Got hurt. Tua could have said, hey, I'm going to come back just to make sure I'm healthy, show everybody what I can do. And Mac Jones would have been out back. He decided to wait it out. Played for 1 year, lit it up, and now you see what happens. So Exactly. Anyway, I digress. Got another super chat. This one is from Vincent Cole. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Cole. Greatly appreciate you. My man Vincent Cole writes, Lou, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Feels good, man. Feels good. Feels good to be back. I feel refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to go. So, looking to hit the ground running. Tons of coverage coming for you guys over the next week and a half. Balls to the wall. I'm probably going to lose my voice somewhere around Friday, Saturday, if everything happens the way that I think. But I'm prepared for it, man. Looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. Got another super chat here. This one is from Daily Grind. Thank you for the super chat, Daily Grind. Greatly appreciate you. Daily Grind writes, come on, guys. The least y'all can do is hit the like button. Sheesh. You know, Daily Grind is right. Look, I don't ask much. All I ask for you to do is subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And hit the like button. All right, we're at 93 likes. There are over 380 of you out there. No excuse as to why we can't get this to $150. Let's get it up over 100, and let's try to get to $150 as soon as possible. Really appreciate you guys, and I'll thank you in advance. And I want to thank Daily Grind again for the super chat and having that call to action. Got another super chat. This one is from The Real Chase Young. Thank you for the super chat, The Real Chase Young, who writes, LT, big fan, keep up the good work. I appreciate you. And you know, it ain't no stopping this thing. Ain't no stopping me now. I'm on the move. Ain't no stopping, man. This train is not stopping. And I'm hoping that none of y'all get off. We just keep riding this thing on out, man. And you know how we do. The ups, the downs, you know, the bumps along the road. When these roller coasters start to get a little rocky, you know, you get on one of these coasters that's an old coaster that's wooden, and that's how this ride is with Washington a lot of times is, you know, we don't know if we coming or going, but we buckle the seatbelt and we don't get off. And I'm hoping y'all ride with me the same way you do with this team, because this team has frustrated us to no end, but we still support it. And I'm hoping that that same kind of love is reciprocated here on the Louie T Network. So I appreciate y'all. Anyhow, I think that is the last super chat. I do want to say this real quick. Couple of things. I didn't do a video for Jordan Reed retiring, Alex Smith retiring, or Bryce Love being released because why? Like those things weren't important enough for me to even fire up the camera and give y'all any kind of feedback off of that. Y'all already knew how I felt about every single one of those moves made. Jordan Reed, we wanted him to retire when he left here. We didn't want him to go to San Francisco and play a year. I'm glad that he was able to retire after going out on his own terms, though, which is probably why he did it, to say, hey, I didn't retire based off of a concussion and never hit the field again. I got to walk off the field the last time on my own power the way I wanted to. Now, he's retiring because of concussions, and he's made that abundantly clear that neurologists have told him it's probably in your best interest to not play football anymore, and so he's making the smart decision. We didn't want him to play anymore. We love Jordan Reed. There was no animosity, ill will whatsoever. There were people that have hit me up this offseason and said, hey, what do you think about Jordan Reed coming back here? I'm like, come on, man. You really want to go down that road again? I'm glad he's retiring. So I'm happy for him. Wish his career could have been longer. Wish it could have been here. And we know what kind of a football player he was. At his peak, in his prime, I don't think there was a player in the league, corner, linebacker, safety, that could cover this guy one-on-one when he was at his prime. You put him on a choice route and you gave him a three-way go, in, out, up the field, good luck. Good luck. And there was a stretch there in 15, 16, and maybe even a piece of 17 where this dude was unstoppable. So it sucked that his career ended the way that it did, but um, Jordan Reed retires. I'm glad he did, honestly. I want his health long term to be something that he is able to walk away with, and it seems like he's going to be able to do that to some degree. The damage has been done, trust me. But Alex Smith retiring, look, I thought he could have latched on somewhere else, but I think he was only willing this year to be a backup because of the journey that he was on, knowing how far he had come, knowing that he said himself, Washington didn't want to give him an opportunity to play because nobody wanted to be the guy or the team or the organization that put him back on the field for him to get hurt again, and now his life is in danger. No, who wanted to be that guy? Ron didn't want to be that guy, so it was a tough decision and call. So he had climbed, scratched, clawed his way back onto an NFL roster, gotten to this point. He wasn't going to allow his pride and ego to get in the way and say, hey, I'm a starter. If I'm not starting, I don't want to play. No, he wanted to find out if he could do it, and he could. And now that he had proven that he could play and that his leg could hold up, he figured someone was going to give him a chance. Well, he figured wrong because he thought he was going to get a chance to be a starter, and all of those jobs dried up just like that in free agency. The Bears went out and got Andy Dalton. Washington went out and got Ryan Fitzpatrick. The Colts traded for Carson Wentz. The Rams traded for Matthew Stafford. The Lions traded for Jared Goff. The Patriots went back to Cam Newton. The Saints went back to Jameis Winston. Like, all of those jobs that we thought were going to be available, they dried up quickly. And in that game, even I thought in Houston, I said, okay, they may have a Deshaun Watson issue out there. Because either he's going to be put on the NFI list. I don't think he's starting the season off eligible to play. I think the NFL is going to put him on, unless this thing wraps up quickly and he's absolved of any wrongdoing. If there's still an open investigation, which right now it seems like it's trending in that direction, plenty of time to go though. If there's still an open investigation, he's more likely than not going to be not suspended, but not eligible to play as the NFL continues to investigate and let that process play itself out. Alex is like, well, shit, I should be able to get a job in Houston then. And they say, nah, we'll roll with Tyrod Taylor. Well, if I can't get a job in Houston, well, shit, what am I going to do? You know, Jacksonville came calling as we thought they would. Herb said, hey, you my boy. There is no Urban Meyer without you starting me off at Utah. You put me on the map. You helped put me on the map. Come back here, man. I got a young boy that's going to need some tutelage, and some tutoring, and some mentor. Ship. Come to Jacksonville. And he's like, nah, I don't do those things anymore. That was a one-time thing. So he realized nobody really wants him to play. Washington played you out of necessity. They had him buried on the depth chart as the third quarterback. They had no intentions of playing him. Worst case scenario was Dwayne stinks it up, and he did. They go to Kyle Allen, and he plays the rest of the season, and that was supposed to be that. Kyle Allen breaks his ankle. Dwayne stinks. They really were handcuffed at that point. Their hands were tied behind their back. They had to do the thing that they really didn't want to do, which was play Alex Smith. They played him. The rest is history. Helps Washington get to the postseason, but he couldn't finish the season. He couldn't finish the season. The leg is a problem. And there's still the risk of him potentially getting injured. Nobody else other than Washington was really willing to take on that risk. He found that out in free agency, and he said, you know what? What am I doing? I'm hanging on to something that isn't really worth hanging on to at this point. I got my leg. I got my wife. I got my kids. I'm intact. My health is as good as I could expect it to be after what I went through. What am I doing here, man? Let me go ahead and retire and enjoy life. So he did that. Good for him. I'll always appreciate what he did for us here, especially if this Ron Rivera train gets humming and we look back a decade from now and Ron's got this thing going and we've been to 2 NFC championships, a Super Bowl, and we look back on it and we say, hey, Alex was the one that helped jumpstart this thing. If we get to that point, I'll forever be indebted to Alex. Right now, I just really appreciate him. I really appreciate him. So he retires too. And then there's Bryce Love. And for me, I was over Bryce Love. I was over you guys asking about Bryce Love, just like I was over you guys asking about Reuben Foster, just like I was over you guys reminding me that Thaddeus Moss still existed on the roster. These things get old after a while. You're excited about Thad Moss when you first get him as an undrafted rookie. Okay, I was excited just like the next man. Made a video talking about, hey, told you guys, don't get too carried away with him because he wasn't a great athlete, which is why he didn't get drafted. Don't care if he was banged up or not at the combine. We see guys all the time not healthy enough to work out in the offseason, not able to work out at the combine, not able to work out at the pro day. You just go off the tape. If you're athletically gifted and you got talent, you still get drafted. He didn't get drafted. Why? Because he wasn't all that good to begin with. So, I was still hopeful because we didn't have shit at tight end. Okay? Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You got to have something. And I said, maybe he's the something. He was nothing. Okay. Well, you guys kept asking about him. Well, don't forget about Thaddeus Moss. They put us out of our misery. I said, thank you. Please take me out back. Pop, pop. Put 2 in the dome and put that to rest. They did. They said, all right, what else is on the agenda for you, man? What else you having problems with? What else do people keep asking? I said, what about Reuben Foster? It says, he's not even under contract, bruh. We don't even bring him up, so why are you? I said the same thing. Ron said, so what do you want me to do? He's not on our team. He after the season was over, his contract it expired. We didn't re-sign him. We didn't even bring up his name. People would bring his name up, and I would just gloss over it. What do you want me to do? I said, I don't need you to do anything else, Ron. I don't need you to do anything else. I appreciate you. He says, anybody else? I said, yeah, man. You got to do something with Bryce Love. You're killing me, man. You're killing me. I'm either getting people asking me, how's the rehab? What do you think about Bryce Love? Can he help? He said, all right, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it before the draft. I said, thank you, man. I really, really appreciate you, Ron. He says, don't mention it, man. And so, on a quiet, Friday, I guess, maybe? Afternoon, maybe a Wednesday, they went ahead and put 2, boom, boom, in the dome of the career, the Washington career, that is, of Bryce Love. And my reaction on Twitter was about damn time. Finally, he wasn't going to help us, man. Let's just keep it a buck. He wasn't going to help us. They had moved on. And rightfully so. This was 3 years of having never seen a guy on the field, essentially. At some point, you got to be able to say, all right, enough's enough. You're holding up a roster spot. Well, he really wasn't because he was on the practice squad or he was on IR, but Ron gave him a year to figure it out. He didn't figure it out. We got to move on. So I said this a while back, early in the offseason. Running back is on my list of needs. I think they need to draft one. I love me some Peyton Barber. Anybody that can carve out a niche for himself like he did last year, I got nothing but love for you, baby. What you got? I got nothing but love for you. Yeah, whatever. I got nothing but love for that dude. I would love to have him back. There's a place on my roster for a guy that will pick up every 3rd and 4th down short yardage situation. Got a spot on the roster for him. You know JD ain't going nowhere, and we know Gibby ain't going nowhere. So you got 3 running backs. They brought back Lamar Miller. Why? Don't ask me. I don't know. Because to me, there's never a reason, unless it's a Hall of Famer like AD, there's never a reason to bring back a 30-something-year-old running back. Not when you can get one of these young boys that's 23 with fresh legs out here, undrafted, late-round draft pick. Well, how old is Lamar Marshall, man? Lamar Miller. I got to stop calling this man Lamar Marshall. How old is Lamar Miller? Let's find out, shall we? He got to be every bit of 29. I'm going to put him at 30, personally, myself. But Lamar Miller is 29 years old. He will be 30 in approximately 4 days. Okay? I don't see the purpose for a 30-year-old running back. I'm sorry. I can go get me a young boy that's 23 with 4 brand new tires, with limited tread off of them things, and ready to roll. I don't need a 30-year-old running back that's already had a ACL or 2 ACL injuries in his career that's trying to hang on. That's cool. I can just go give me a young boy, though. So I was never relying on Bryce Love. That's why I told you, running back for me on the list. Now, it's down a ways on the list. But for me, I said running back would be something I would explore. Just like I said, defensive end, something that I would explore. So I said all of that to say this. None of those were real big issues for me, enough to come on and give y'all something. So if you were looking for something, I apologize, but those were non-issues. I figured just wait till the live show to address those quickly. And so we just did. Anyway, I digress. Got another super chat. This one is from the real Chase Young. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, the real Chase Young. Greatly appreciate you and your generosity. Really, truly do appreciate you who writes just because. That's nothing but love right there. When you just drop a 50 spot just because, I really rock with you. I really do. Thank you for the support. I can't begin to express how much I do appreciate that, man. Just because. All right. I really F's with you. So thank you for that. I greatly appreciate you. Got another super chat. One more time. Real Chase Young. Thank you for that super chat. Just because. Got one here from Calvin Krim. Thank you for the super chat, Calvin Krim. Greatly appreciate you. My man Calvin Krim writes, "Hey Lou, a bunch of Washington fans are gung-ho at grabbing Moehrig at 19. Hearing that sounds absolutely ridiculous, or is it?" No, it's not absolutely ridiculous. If they love Trayvon Moehrig and he's the best safety in this draft, and you have a need at safety, if you feel like this guy and the value you're getting from him, they need at 19, it meets a need as well, why not? I don't have a problem with it. I don't think he's going at 19. He's going to be a first rounder. It's crazy because I shouldn't say he's going to be a first rounder. I think he's going to be a first rounder. But I thought Xavier McKinley was going to be a first round safety last year out of Alabama, and the Giants got him in the second round. And we didn't see a first round safety last year. It could happen again. We could not have a first round safety conceivably in this year's draft. I think that he will be drafted in the first round at some point. I just don't think it'll be at 19, but I wouldn't have a problem with it if they thought he was the answer at free safety. So, no, that's not ridiculous, but I don't think it's going to happen either. So, Washington fans have been gung-ho at grabbing a safety for the last decade and a half. Ever since Sean Taylor passed away, they want to replace you. There's no, that void has been sitting there, and people are just obsessed with filling that void with somebody, with something. We've been through a lot of guys between then and now, you know. There's some forgettable names like Brandon Merriweather, you know, in there. How about Kareem Moore? I mean, I could go on and on. There have been so many guys that we've brought in to try and give us something, and we've failed epically at doing so. And thus, we continue it. How many fans, go get Trey Boston? We gotta get Trey Boston. For what? Why exactly? This is kind of similar to that. Like, they're obsessed. And this is what happens during this draft period anyway, is you latch on to a guy that you love, and It's like a dog with a bone. You just can't come off of that player. And once some people latched on to Trayvon Moore, that's their guy. A lot of fans have latched on to Xavier Collins. That's their guy at 19. And they're not coming off of it. And even though we may get a guy that's better than that, they might not be happy because they wanted their guy. So it's not uncommon this time of the year for fans to find a guy that they love and to latch on to that dude. For some fans, it may be Trayvon Moore. It's not for me. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think that's a ridiculous notion, one, that it could happen. And I don't think anybody thinking that could happen is ridiculous for thinking that way, because it could happen. I don't think it will, but it could. It sounded ridiculous 2 weeks ago. But a lot of things sounded ridiculous 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. You know, I'm amazed at how fast players can rise during this process. And you know what's funny is we get so much of this draft talk and consume so much of it from media sources. So we're trained to think about these players the way that the media has pushed all of these thoughts into our head. So you look at a guy, and if the media keeps telling you he's a second-round player, then you start thinking he's a second-round guy. If you don't evaluate these players on your own, separately, and have convictions and stick with them, and sometimes you can have convictions and be wrong. I've done it plenty of times. I've done it this year already, and I've had to go back and retract. It happens. But I said all of that to say this. We start the process out and the guy is a 4th round pick. And then the evaluators and the coaching staff gets a hold of his tape. And he goes from a 4th round pick because all of the media guys said he was a 4th round pick. He's a mid-round guy. You know, late day 2, early day 3. And then the coaches get a hold of the tape. And now he's a 1st round pick. It's amazing how that shit happens. I've heard it at least 3 times this year. It's crazy. So, no, Trayvon Moore, and he was one of those guys that when this process started, he was a 2nd round pick. Now, he's looking like potentially a 1st round pick. So, no, it's not ridiculous at all. We'll see what happens. Thank you for the super chat, Calvin Krim. Got another super chat. This one is from Will Diggs. Thank you for the super chat, Will Diggs. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Travis Etienne in the 2nd round? Question mark. He's not going to be there at 51. If you want Travis Etienne, you're going to have to trade up to get him. He's going in the 30s, I believe. He could go in the 1st round, personally. Like, if I'm the Steelers, I think they're going to take a running back. We all know what Steelers players look like, and Travis Etienne doesn't look like, a Pittsburgh Steeler. That doesn't mean they shouldn't think about taking him. Adds a different dimension to their offense. However, we know what they're ultimately going to do with their pick. If it's a running back, it's not going to be Travis Etienne. I don't think he's going to get drafted in the 1st round, but he could. I see a number of teams. I've said all along, Travis Etienne would be the perfect fit in Miami for the Dolphins. Will they pull the trigger on that or not? Probably not. But guess what? They don't have to. They could take him in the 2nd round. They got 2 2nd-round picks. They could take him in the 2nd round. They don't have to take him in the 1st round. I think that Travis Etienne would be a great fit in Jacksonville. I know what their undrafted rookie Robinson did last year. He was phenomenal. Phenomenal. But he could be the power, and Etienne could be the speed. They're not going to do that. Herb went out and signed like 18 running backs, including Carlos Hyde. They're not going to draft Etienne, especially not in the 1st round. So I said all that to say this. Etienne not going to be drafted in the 1st round, more likely than not. He could. I would bet against it. But he will be drafted in the 2nd, and he'll be gone, long gone, before 51. Would I draft him at 51 even if he were available? No, I wouldn't. Why? Because we got Gibby. Like, I think we need a running back. I don't think we need a running back in the 2nd round. I think we need a 5th or a 6th round running back. Because look at it this way. If you draft Travis Etienne, you're investing a second-round pick on a guy that, how many snaps is he truly going to play with Gibby, who we spent the third-round pick on last year, and J.D. McKissick, if healthy, which I'm going to assume because we got a lot of mileage out of J.D. last year. If he's healthy again, I got to assume that those guys with, don't forget, Curtis Samuel coming in to play now on board, he's going to have some reps at running back, and they're going to do some creative things with him, we would like to think. So why would you invest a second-round pick on a guy that's not going to play all that much? That just doesn't make any sense. So I would much more prefer them to go the route of the 5th or 6th round running back, personally, myself. And I think that's what they'll ultimately do is, I know we don't have a 6th round pick, so 5th or 7th round, whatever the case may be, something along those lines. Even an undrafted guy, you know, if there's a guy or two that you like that's undrafted, that you make a priority free agent and you're able to get him to sign on the dotted line, cool. But I think they do need to have a young guy also in camp that they like, just in case they realize Lamar Miller looks 30, because he will be 30 years old. So, but not Travis Etienne in the second round. That doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. Thank you for the super chat, Will Diggs. Got another one here from DMV Fan 123. Greatly appreciate you, DMV Fan 123, who writes, "Family TV broke 1 week before draft. Just my luck." Well, you gotta have another TV in the house somewhere, right? I mean, the family TV might be the biggest TV in the house, but I would assume there's another TV. I shouldn't assume, but I'm going to assume there's another TV in the house. You still should be able to watch the draft. Look, it's 2021. There are so many ways to watch this thing. I'm pretty sure you got a mobile device, you got a laptop or something that you can stream the draft on. It'll be on multiple streaming platforms. If you have cable, which I can't assume because a lot of people don't have cable anymore, but if you have cable, then you've got ESPN, more likely than not. So you can access that through your ESPN app, whatever the case may be. This thing might even be streaming online in multiple spots. You'll have a way to watch the draft. But in case you don't, your man Louie T's got you covered. I'll be here. We'll be watching the draft together, and you will have an opportunity to know exactly what's going on with every pick, including the one at 19 for the Washington football team. So whether your TV is working or you get a new one or you don't, you'll have a way to know what's going on either way. So that's unfortunate, but you'll be all right. The real Chase Young, thank you for tripling up. I'm almost speechless, but I'm never speechless because I'm Louie T and I always got something to say. So, wow, is what I'm going to say. Thank you so much for your second straight 50 piece. Really appreciate you, man. The love is definitely being reciprocated and it's mutual, man. Thank you so much for the super chat and the support. The real Chase Young, who tripled up and writes, "What's your first choice pick at 19?" Again, talked about this earlier on the show tonight. It's hard to say what you would or wouldn't do at 19, not already knowing what is available to you. I mean, obviously, if I had my pick of the litter, I would be including guys that I know have no chance in hell of being around at 19. You know, a guy like Kyle Pitts would fit this team like hand in glove. He's exactly what we need, but 31 other teams they're saying the exact same thing. Even like a team like San Francisco or Kansas City that have perennial all-pro tight ends, they're saying, hey, 2 of them doesn't hurt, you know. Everybody wants Kyle Pitts. Dallas, Jerry Jones can't stop drooling all over Kyle Pitts. They're not going to get him. The Falcons, they could take him at 4. They could not take him. They want him though. You know, the only thing that will get him out of 4 more likely than not is a sweet ass deal from somebody to come up and get a quarterback. The Bengals want him at 5, reportedly. The Dolphins want him at 6. I mean, who doesn't want him? So he would be my first choice, non-quarterback wise. You know, if I could have my pick, I would want one of the quarterbacks. I personally would like Zach Wilson. But give me Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, all those guys tickle my fancy. Yeah, but you're asking me of the players realistically that I think are going to be available at 19, which one would I take? Which would be my first choice? And it's hard for me to bring myself because I'm a very, very rational thinker, almost to a point that it's a fault. I'm too practical. Like, I know that there are so many different things that could transpire in this draft that could change what Washington does at 19. I would love Micah Parsons. I still don't think. And, you know, one of the things I haven't really heard about, speaking of Micah Parsons, is just how serious these allegations are and how people feel about him. Is he really a bad dude? Is he a guy with some real character issues? I'm hearing that there have been issues since high school with this kid. We know about the allegations levied against him and several other teammates for hazing at Penn State. But again, I'm not hearing people talk about this stuff really. And nobody wants to kill the kid. They don't want to, you know, destroy his draft stock. But at the end of the day, if it's legitimate stuff, it's legitimate stuff. I haven't been hearing about it. This could be draft smoke. Draft smoke. We see it all the time. Where if I'm a team at 12 and I want Micah Parsons, you know what I'm telling everybody? Hey, this dude is bad news, man. He's been cutting up since the 9th grade. I went all the way back, talked to his high school homeroom teacher in 9th grade, and she said he won't shit then. He ain't shit now. I wouldn't take him. He ain't even on our board. So you can get him at 12. That's what teams do. It's some real sinister shit, but it happens every single year. So I would take him in a heartbeat. Take Micah Parsons in a heartbeat. I'd take any of the corners. Heartbeat. I'd take J.C. Horn. Don't think he's going to be there at 19. Sorry. 2 weeks ago, did anybody think J.C. Horn would be gone before 15? I didn't. His ass won't be there at 19. I tell you that much. He'll be gone. I'd take J.C. Horn in a heartbeat. I'd take Patrick Surtain II. The only one I'm leery on, and if he's healthy, he might be better than all of them, is Caleb Farley. I told you, I can't bring myself. We've had a track record here in Washington of getting damaged goods and thinking that somehow, magically, we're the antidote. We're the team. We're the Phoenix Suns of the NFL that we can fix broken players. No, we can't. Okay? Bryce Love is living proof. We don't get these things right. Guys that were hurt before they get here get hurt and stay hurt while they're here. I need guys that are healthy, which is why I wasn't mad that they didn't go after Hunter Henry. Even though he's not as bad, he's still damaged goods. There are a lot of guys I would take at 19. I'd take JOK, take a number of guys at 19. Who's my first choice? Again, of the guys that'll probably be available, it's hard to say. Because again, this draft is crazy. 6 quarterbacks could go in front of Washington. What? What? Yeah, 6. I mean, who knows what the hell is going to happen? We don't know. So, all I know is I think our first pick at 19, or wherever it comes, If it's at 19, I think I've said this already. I think it's one of three positions if it comes at 19. Linebacker, wide receiver, offensive tackle. It's coming from one of those three positions at 19. If it's a receiver, that's fall down. That's spillage only. They're not going to draft Rashad Bateman at 19. That's not what they're doing. They're not drafting Rondale Moore or Kadarius Toney at 19. That's not spillage. They're only drafting a receiver at 19 if it's spillage, if it's Jalen Waddle, or if it's Devontae Smith. That's how you get a receiver at 19. I don't think that's happening. Offensive tackle. They're not reaching for a tackle. We're not drafting Tevin Jenkins or Liam Eichenberg, okay, at 19. We're not doing that. I don't even think they're drafting Elijah Tucker Vera. I don't think they're drafting him either. Or Vera Tucker, excuse me. I just don't see that. If it's a tackle, it's one of the perceived elite tackles. It ain't Penei Sewell because he's not dropping that far. It's probably more likely than not going to be Rashawn Slater because somebody's going to take him too. You're talking about either Darrisaw or Darrisaw. Or Darrisaw, excuse me. And I personally don't. I told you, tackles get pushed up. They get pushed up. Just like quarterbacks get pushed up, tackles get pushed up. I don't see Christian Darrisaw being there. I just don't see Christian Darrisaw being on the board at the time of the pick at 19. And I don't see them reaching for a tackle. So that leaves me at linebacker. And there will be plenty of options at 19 available for Washington to select. They're going to select the one that they like the most. And that's ultimately what I think is going to happen. A linebacker. Period. Won't be the first linebacker off the board. Might not even be the second linebacker off the board. There's a chance that it is the second linebacker off the board. But it won't be the first. Because Michael Parsons won't be available at 19. But it could be a chance that it's the second linebacker off the board. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't rule out corner either. Let me add corner in the mix, even though I don't see corner dropping. But I want to add another name in there that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. But these corners, it's a deep corner draft, so you would like to think that they're going to get pushed back because of it. I think that people are like, to hell with that shit. Yeah, it's a lot of corners, but I still want to get mine early. Don't want to wait. Don't want to step outside and catch a break. Greg Newsome II, Northwestern corner. Add him to the mix as a guy that could be potentially a pick at 19 for Washington. It could be a corner. So linebacker, wide receiver, tackle, corner. I don't think it's going to be receiver because it's only going to be a receiver if it's spillage. One of the Bama boys, and I don't think they're going to be available. I don't think it's going to be offensive tackle because they're not reaching beyond the first three tackles. Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, and Christian Darrisaw. They're not reaching beyond those three. I don't think either of those guys will be available by the time we get on the board at 19. So then you find yourself talking about two positions. Linebacker, cornerback. I think our pick will come from one of those two positions. Personally, I think it's linebacker. Thank you for the super chat, the real Chase Young. Got another super chat. This one is from 99 Problems. Chase ain't one. Thank you for the super chat. 99 Problems. Chase ain't one. Who writes, Jamin Davis or Michael Parsons, Louie? Who you got? Michael Parsons. Now, here's the thing. From a character standpoint, this ain't even a race. It's Dwayne Haskins against Usain Bolt from a character standpoint. Jamin Davis comes from a military background. He, by all accounts, is the quintessential leader. He works hard. First guy in the building, last to leave. Tremendous athlete. Checks off every single box. So from a character standpoint, it ain't even close. It's Jamin Davis. But from a raw upside ability, it's Michael Parsons. Now, Jamin Davis is every bit the athlete Michael Parsons is. Every bit the athlete. It's just that Michael Parsons comes in a 11-pound heavier frame, and he's just scratching the surface because Michael Parsons wasn't a linebacker when he showed up at Happy Valley. He's still learning how to play the linebacker position. He has no idea what he's doing right now. So, it's Michael Parsons. But don't sleep on Jamin Davis. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Got another super chat. This one is from Avery Giovanni, Spirit of Detroit Podcast. Thank you for the super chat, Avery Giovanni, Spirit of Detroit Podcast. Writes, Kellen Mond is your quarterback of the future / he's amazing. We can agree to disagree on that. I hope they don't view him as the quarterback of the future. But again, if they were to draft him, you know how I roll. I will get on the Kellen Mond bandwagon. I'll be rooting like hell for the young fella and hope that he proves me wrong. I would love nothing more than to be wrong about Kellen Mond if he's donning the burgundy and gold. However, I just don't see that being the case. So, we'll see what happens. You know, Chris Sims seems to love Kellen Mond. Good for him. Good for him. And he may turn out to be one of the better quarterbacks in this draft class. May turn out to be correct there. We remember his list, and Mond was pretty high on that damn list. A number of guys that we view as high-level quarterbacks in this draft were way down the list, including Trey Lance and Justin Fields. So, we'll see. I'm not a Kellen Mond fan. Haven't been. I have acknowledged that 2020's tape, not bad. Not bad at all. Still some things that I don't love about Kellen Mond, but he was a lot better than I had seen in the previous years. And there was growth and maturation. But I don't love Kellen Mond. So we can agree to disagree on that one. Got another super chat. This one is from my guy, Trevor Patch. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Trevor Patch. Greatly appreciate you. Trevor Patch writes, I don't love this draft. Hopefully Ron makes history and trades out of all 7 rounds for next year's capital and future years. That is definitely not happening. However, it's funny that you say that because Ron and Martin Mayhew were asked at their pre-draft presser about the value of this draft. Normally, when you get into a draft situation, there are over 1,000 prospects that you get to pick from. I think the question that was posed was like, hey, normally every year in the draft there are over 1,600 guys that are available to be drafted. This year, I think the number is something like 300 or 500, somewhere in there. It's not a lot. It's literally like a fifth or fourth of what normally is available in the draft, which is asinine. I mean, to think that there are only like 300, let's call it 400 guys that are draftable, and 252, I believe, of them are going to be selected. Like, that's crazy. More than 2/3 of the guys available in this year's draft are going to be picked. That's not how this is supposed to go. So Martin Mayhew essentially said, look, there's a lot less value in this year's draft, and the quality isn't as great because of that fact. He says you would probably be spot on if you said that the talent in next year's draft or the quality in next year's draft is going to be greater than this year's draft. So, to speak towards Trevor Patch's point, there is this sense that this isn't the most talented draft that we've ever seen. And a lot of that can be attributed to COVID-19 and the fact that a lot of guys are going back to school because they're eligible for another year. And guys opted out last year and they don't have a lot of tape and they want to go back and put some more tape on. And that's, in a lot of these cases, it's the right thing to do. 2019 and, the 2020 season, very disjointed, Davis Mills in the Pac-12 played in like 6 games because the Pac-12 started late, like the Big Ten did. If Davis Mills would have had all of his teammates, guys that opted out, like his tackle, Walker Little, they got a corner that could have easily have been a first-round pick that nobody's really talking about. But he'll probably be taken in the second round. Adebo. Who knows how good Stanford would have been this year if all of their players that opted out played. We could say that for a ton of teams over the whole entire landscape of college football. LSU isn't trash like they were this year if Jamar Chase and all of the guys that opted out ended up playing. But they didn't. It's a weird year. So, yeah, this year's draft, really, really limited. We'll see. Ron's not trading out of all 7 rounds, though. Somebody sent me a mock draft. Speaking of trades, somebody sent me a mock draft. And I'm not shitting on their mock draft because mock drafts are essentially wish lists. When you're doing your team's 7-round mock, it's essentially a wish list. This guy sent me a mock and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" The first 3 picks in the draft, I believe, were trade ups. Traded up their first pick. Matter of fact, I could pull it up. If it wasn't the first 3, it was the first 2. Let's see. Pull up this mock draft somebody sent to me. All right. So, oh man, I thought I had saved it. I liked it. I thought I liked it. I guess I didn't like it. So I should have. So I'm going to like it right now. So Washington trades Washington actually trade. So he had me they didn't trade their first pick. They didn't trade up for their first pick. They stayed there, took a guy. They traded up to 21 with the Colts and took Trayvon Moehrig. 19 was Christian Darrisaw, first and foremost. So they trade up to 21, back into the first round to take Trayvon Moehrig. They give up in compensation 51, which is this year's second, 2022's third, and 2023's fourth. Okay? So next year's third, and the year after that's fourth. After that, he has Washington traded back into the first round again, which I don't know if a team's ever done that. Traded back into the first round twice after already having a first round pick. Anyway, has Washington trading up to 29 with Green Bay to get Zaven Collins, in which Washington gives up their second round pick in 2022 or 23. So not next year's draft, but the year after that. Can't give them, which I don't think a team would take a pick that far out. If I'm trading out of the first round this year, I want your second round pick next year. Anyway, 2023's second, and then this year's first third, 74, and 163, which probably amounts to a fifth round pick. So that's what he had Washington doing, trading up. Then listen to this. If it wasn't bad enough, we traded up to get Morig and Collins and gave up a bunch of draft capital in future drafts. He's got Washington getting Najee Harris at 56. He's not going to be. He's going to be gone in the first round. He's got Washington getting Jamin Davis in the fourth round. He's not going to be around in the second round. He's getting picked in the first round more likely than not. And, you know, the rest of the draft, it's fine. 2 7th round picks. That's a wish list. That's not a mock draft. That's a wish list. Oh, man. Oh, man. Anyway, I digress. Long story short, I don't think Martin Mayhew loves this draft either, but I think they do recognize that there's talent in this draft, guys that can help this football team, and they're going to do their best to try and acquire those players via the draft. Thank you for the super chat, Trevor Patch. The real Chase Young. Wow. Fourth super chat of the night. I appreciate you, man. Like, seriously. You the real MVP of the night. Real Chase Young. Third 50 spot of the night for the real Chase Young, who writes, not ready for you to get off, LT. We getting close. We are getting close, but shit, for that super chat, we'll stick around and we'll chop it up a little bit longer. Really do appreciate you. Indeed. Let's knock out a few comments. Y'all can thank my man, the real Chase Young, for this. We'll knock out a few comments if there are any up there. Let's see. Got one here from Eugene Cherry, who says, would you consider taking calls during your show and not answering questions that way? Nah. I've done that before. I'm not going back that way again. Got another one here from Larry G's the best, says, I don't know if you know this YouTuber named EDP445. He's an Eagles fan. Dude just got caught trying to meet up with a minor. I know who you're speaking of. I don't know him personally, but I would be lying if I told you I was shocked to hear that, if in fact it is true. But again, I don't know him, and I don't know that to be a fact or not. But if you've ever watched his channel, then you know that's not far-fetched. Anyhow, I digress. Got another comment here from Brian Say. What do you think of Charles Snowden, the UVA linebacker? Super long. It's like 6'7", long arms, legs, arms for days. He's an ex-basketball player. He looks the part. There's some talent there and some untapped potential, but he's raw as hell. He's best when he's blitzing, attacking downhill. I think he is a guy that if I were interested in him, it'd be in a 3-4 defensive scheme as an outside linebacker. I think that's where his true value is. He's not a put your hand in the dirt defensive end. He's not a true 4-3 linebacker. I think he's a guy that you stand up outside, which is how they used him at UVA. They moved him all around. He was pretty much in a 2-point stance all the time. And I think that's how you would have to utilize him. But he's tall up and down. He's angular. So even in a 3-4 defense, at the point of attack, he could get moved, pretty easily. How much does he weigh? I think when I scouted him, it was 234. But, we can't go off of that because so many guys this year have weighed, like Jamin Davis played at 224 and he weighed in at 234. So, you can put on some weight, but last time I checked, he was like 234 or something like that. So I'm a little skeptical on what he brings to the table. 6'6", 232 is what he's currently listed as. So he's interesting. Got good movement skills. I think he's a guy that is intriguing, but you got to have a plan for him. You can't just draft him and say, all right, we're just going to throw you into defense. You got to have a plan for him. But I think he's a guy that in today's NFL, if you put him with the right defensive coordinator that has a plan for him, he could actually be a weapon. Because he's got the size at 6'6" and the length to really be disruptive in the passing game. He's got to be coached up. So, anyway, digress. Got another comment here. Kevin the PRF says, what free agents do you see getting a phone call post-draft? Unrelated, Reuben Foster is looking over my shoulder right now. A guy like Dick Sherman, who no team was really rushing to sign him, he's a post-draft signee. He's a guy that you say, all right, you just hold tight. We'll see if we get a guy in the draft. If we don't, you're available, we'll sign you. Dick Sherman is the perfect example of a guy that's not going to be signed until after the draft. I can't tell you who's still available as free agents, but I still think there are several tackles out there like Alejandro Villanueva. I don't think he's signed anywhere, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's still a free agent. Teams are like, hey, this is a really deep tackle draft. Like, I don't have to sign a veteran tackle, but you go in the draft, you don't get one of these tackles. Alejandro Villanueva is sitting there, you sign him. Like, those are the kinds of guys that are going to have to wait. Because the guys that I just mentioned play at positions that are deep, and they're veterans and older veterans on the wrong side of 30 for both of them. And most of the guys that are out there waiting right now are on the wrong side of 30. If you play at a position where there are a bunch of guys in this draft, i.e. tackle, wide receiver, or corner, those are the kind of guys that are going to get shafted in free agency because you're like, hey, I can find a young guy, cheap labor on a rookie deal, don't have to pay you a whole bunch of money as a veteran that's looking to get paid. Give me a cheap guy and do the same thing, if not better than you at this point in your career. Or you might be a team ready to win. If you can't get a high-level player, you don't want a 4th or 5th round guy filling the void of someone that you think can help you win now. So, anyway, you get where I'm going with that. Gregory Lightbody says, you think Collins gaining 10 more pounds means he should play D-end instead of linebacker? Who? Oh, Zaven Collins. Okay. I was like, who? No, that's not who he is. He's a linebacker. Like, he's a linebacker. He ran a 4.65. He's a big guy. Like, his strength is he is so big and still athletic. You don't want to put him on the defensive line. Now he's a below average athlete at that point. So no. The benefit of him being able to rush the quarterback from a 2-point stance or even sticking his hand in the dirt as a 265-pound linebacker that can rush, that's the benefit. That's the added benefit. You put him at 275, now he's probably running a 4.7, and he's not as explosive. You just changed who he is as a football player. Now you're not getting all of the benefits of what he was coming into the league. So, no, it doesn't make any sense for him to gain any more weight. He's big enough as is, and he's a really good athlete at his size. 260 pounds, 4.65 40, no. You don't want him gaining any more weight and sticking his hand in the dirt. On third downs, when you want him to rush in obvious passing situations, you can do that because he's shown the ability to be able to do that. But his strength is just being multifaceted, dropping into coverage, having instincts, still being able to get to the ball carrier at 260, being able to rush the quarterback. These are all things that you get in that package, and by putting him in a box and saying now you're a defensive end, you lose all of those attributes. Got another super chat. This one is from Martin Matthews. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, "Hey Louie, I think we will be getting a speedy wide receiver in this draft. What round do you think that will happen? Good to see you back. Glad to be back. Thank you for the super chat, Martin Matthews. Really appreciate you. I think they want to add some more speed too. And some of the guys that they've met with this offseason via Zoom kind of reflects that. All of those guys can run. And I think if they decide to enhance the speed at receiver, I think it's going to come in the third round. Personally, you got 2 third-round selections. I think in the first 2 rounds, they really would love to take care of the glaring needs on the roster, linebacker and tight end. And I think after that, and don't forget tackle, if they can get a second-round tackle, I think they would be open to doing that as well. But if they don't get one in the first, that's assuming they don't get Darisaw or someone like that in the first round. They would love to knock that out in the second, because Brevin Jordan more likely than not still going to be around in the third round. Now, will he be around at 74 by the time Washington is on the board? That's debatable. But as far as, I'm concerned, I think they would like to enhance the speed on offense, particularly at the receiver position, within the first 2 days of this draft. Whether that comes at 19 with one of the Bama boys, or the second round with, one of these receivers, Dwayne Eskridge, Rondale Moore, I think is a guy that really intrigues them because he gives them, I think Curtis Samuel type vibes. And, one thing about a guy like Curtis Samuel is, leading up to the week of the game, you're putting in a Curtis Samuel package where you put together 6 to 8 plays where, hey, we want to get it in his hands. If he's injured, that portion of your playbook is now scrapped. It's the same premise we had with Jordan Reed when he was here in Washington. Every week, Jay would put together a Jordan Reed package of plays where we want to isolate Jordan Reed, get him against their safety or their linebacker, or just get the ball to Jordan Reed, whether it's zone, man, prefer it to be man so he could break a dude off and get open. But whatever the case may be, we got a Jordan Reed package. We're going to get him the football. If Jordan's hurt, that element of our offense is now negated. We don't have another guy that can do the things that Jordan Reed can do. You want to have another replacement for Curtis Samuel should he be injured. And if he's not injured, you know what's better than one Curtis Samuel and one dynamic athlete? 2. So you're not feeling like, well, Samuel stay healthy, so this guy doesn't benefit us. No, you can put all this speed on the field. Put all these guys that can run on the field. So I think they would like to do that on day 2 personally, second or third round. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened in the 4th round because the receiver position is so deep. After you get past the 4th round, I become really, really skeptical as to the true value of the guy that you added. So we'll see. Got another super chat here. This one is from Hunter Hodovic. Thank you for the super chat, Hunter Hodovic. Greatly appreciate you. Hunter Hodovic writes, "What's up, T? Appreciate it. What's good with you?" Says, "Hope you're doing well." I am. He says, "I'm at work at the moment, so I can't hang out tonight, but just wanted to show some love. Hope your trip was great. HTTWFT, indeed it was, and I thank you for the support, and I hope all is well with you and yours, and hope everything is going well at work." Thank you so much for the super chat, Hunter Hodovic. Let's see. Kevin the PRF says, "My bad, I meant called by Washington. Sherman scares me because he reminds me of an older Josh Norman, albeit without the ego." Oh, you were talking about people for Washington to sign. Ron said that there's still some guys that they may sign. I don't buy that. I mean, if it is, it's low-grade guys, minimal impact guys, special teams, things of that nature, back end of the roster guys. there isn't one position that I'm staring at right now that I say, man, if we don't sign somebody and we don't get somebody in the draft, we're in trouble. You know, for all the Trey Bostoners out there, if he's still available, which he always is this time of the year, after the draft, if they don't get a free safety in this draft and Trey Boston's out there and they feel like they need more depth, he's a guy that they could call and sign. He's got experience with Ron Rivera. Rivera knows what to expect from him. That wouldn't shock me in the least. But he's still available for a reason. And he's always available this time of the year for a reason. But I digress. I really don't see many positions that this team, like, they're not going to go out and sign a free agent tackle. For what? They're either drafting a guy or they're going to stand pat with what they got. You got another year, the final year of Jaron Christian's rookie deal. You got Cornelius Lucas coming back. He's got one more year on his deal, but he's coming back. You got David Sharp coming back again. They read up on David Sharp. You got Morgan Moses. You got 4 tackles. They're not drafting. I mean, they're not signing a free agent veteran tackle. For what? They don't need to. And you got Sadiq Charles, who Ron would not rule out as a potential candidate to play tackle. I don't see them doing that. So, yeah. Gregory Lightbody says, Zaven Collins measured out at 270 today. That's why I'm asking. So that means he put on about 10 pounds roughly. If he didn't lose any athleticism, okay, cool. But if that 4.65 dipped to, say, 4.69 or 4.7, you're like, hey, bro, I need you to get that weight off. I need you to get back to 260. He might even benefit from getting down to 255. Honestly speaking, not going north, but going back down south a bit. He's going in the wrong direction, I feel. But we'll see what happens. Any way you slice it, he's a big-ass athlete. But 270 is a little extreme, if you ask me. Gregory Lightbody says, don't forget Okung is still available to get after the draft for Washington if they miss out on a tackle. Nah, I don't want any parts of Russell Okung. He played in 7 games last year. He's 32 years old. For what? He can't give me anything that I can't get from a combination of Jaron Christian and Cornelius Lucas. I'm good. And you're going to have to pay him. You think he's going to work for free? Nah. So you're right. He's available. And that's what I said. He plays a position that's deep in this draft. If you're a veteran and you're on the wrong side of 30 and you play at one of 3 positions, wide receiver, cornerback, or tackle, you're probably going to be made to wait because everyone wants to make sure that they didn't get a young guy first. Young guy is cheaper, more upside. So, anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me on this Wednesday night. The rest of this week is going to be hectic. So is next week. Buckle up. It's going to be a hell of a ride. I can't wait. Bart Scott. Can't wait. If you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button. Continue to support the Louie T Network as you have done repeatedly throughout this year and past years and even now by hitting that subscribe button, turning on your notification bell, and hitting the like button. 191 likes at this current juncture. 370 of you are out there. Let's get this thing to 200, okay? We're right there on the doorstep. No reason we can't get that done on the way out. So let's see if we cannot get that done. But that said, I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington football team. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I will repeat it once more. Schedule looks like this. Tomorrow, you will get my full first round mock draft split up into 2 parts. I will be live with you guys watching it as a premiere tomorrow night. You'll get 1 through 16 in the first round and then 17 through 32 in the first round. So that'll be Thursday night. I'll also drop my rounds 4 through 7 for Washington's draft on the Flick app. So if you're not a member of the MOBB, stand up. We in the building. You might want to go ahead and get on that because that is something that we will look to do tomorrow to just give you a sneak peek. And then Friday, you'll get the full 7-round Washington football team mock draft with explanations as well as to what I think they're ultimately going to do in the 2021 NFL draft. And so that'll be Friday. Next week, we'll be hitting the ground running with draft coverage. We'll be looking at the cornerback position, the safety position. Hopefully, I can get around to the offensive tackle and running back positions. If not, I will probably go with tackles first because I know 3, 4, possibly 5 of those guys are going to go in the first round. So I want to make sure that we get them out of the way before the draft gets here. So be on the lookout for that. Every day next week heading into the draft, we'll be focused on a specific position. Wednesday night, we'll be live again. So a week from tonight, we'll be live one final time heading in to the 2021 NFL draft, talking Washington and what they'll do at 19 and beyond. Obviously, I think that you're going to see a situation where Washington isn't going to be overly aggressive, but if an opportunity should arise, I think they will consider taking advantage of that opportunity, and that's where the spillage comes into play. And I think there is going to be spillage in this draft. The question is Washington going to be really looking to take advantage of it? And is there a team willing to allow them to take advantage of the spillage? We'll see. That said, we'll have the draft party on Thursday next week, and we'll be live Friday, live again for day 2 draft party, and that will pretty much wrap up the draft coverage. And then, of course, I will break down Washington's entire draft probably that Sunday or Monday after we've had a chance to let it breathe. Usually I'm on immediately thereafter, and so we'll get that at some point. But that's what it looks like from here till the end of the draft. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys during that process. It's going to be a hectic one, but a fun one nonetheless. I got a super chat on the way out from Rob U, my guy Rob U. Thank you for the super chat, who writes, "What up, Lou? Just getting off, so gonna watch the playback tomorrow. Much respect as always, champ." Look, Rob, you know you're my guy. You always support. You always ask questions. You keep the conversation on the show live every single week. So missed you tonight, but as always, really do appreciate you. And look forward to chopping it up with you as we get closer and closer to the draft and ultimately get to the 2021 NFL draft. With that said, I am going to glide to the side and allow you to enjoy the rest of your evening. I've probably taken up far too much of your time already, as is. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow night for the mock draft, the night after for the Washington mock draft, and then we will get into it heavy next week. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys take care, God bless, and good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.